A lot of students during this particular point in time are facing difficulty with respect to what kind of strategy they need to adopt. So what should be a rough strategy for the aspirant for the remaining 2 months?
Whether the static should be focused more and the current should be focused more and all that. So that's like where you are disengaging from the previous integrated approach, as you rightly pointed out, to an approach which is too much prelims oriented.
And when we talk about sir prelim, there are certain kind of like MCQ practice, or we can say the mock test, that play a very important role. So what do you think, like how crucial attempting mock test at this particular juncture is?
Even if we study the entire literature available for humankind on earth, if you will not practice papers, it is very tough because one has to understand the whole psyche of exam. And undoubtedly we are having 2 mock tests in the month of April and one is in May that we call Abhyaas. Abhyaas undoubtedly is a monumental exercise that I would call a UPSC light.
Like what strategy, how they should go from 1 to 100 or 100 to first question. So what will be the strategy for that? Yeah.
So what you do in the mock is what you are going to basically replicate at the level of the examination also. So basically in one go you will go through the paper generally once, and through it you will be marking it in the your OMR sheets as well.
Hello and good evening everyone. So as we know that there are roughly 2 months remaining for the UPSC Prelims examination, we know that many of the students are confused about the strategy that they need to adopt for the remaining 2 months. So we have the panel of the faculties of Vision IAS, where we are going to demystify all these kind of doubts that you are having with respect to prelims, and we'll try to get the answer for the most common questions that every one of us is facing. So welcome everyone for the panel. So Harsh sir, let's start with you, because a lot of students during this particular point in time are facing difficulty with respect to what kind of strategy they need to adopt, because there are like a lot of revision that is needed, shifting from the integrated preparation from prelims and mains to now prelims focused only. So what should be a rough strategy for the aspirant for the remaining 2 months?
Right. So on Vishal, I would say that there are few things which have to be kept in mind. The first would be the point of time where we stand. As you said, we have 2 more months left. So the month itself says March, which means March ahead, right? So there is no point of return from here. And if you go on marching the way you are expected to, then the month of may give you a good result. Right. So this is one thing that I would say. The second is what are the things that you need to focus on? So there also it has to be a structured thing where you're doing things one after the other. The first one that would come would be doing the revision right. Once you have done your revision, the second thing is to test how do you perform based on that revision, and then the lessons learned from the process. So I would say these are the things in terms of the steps which you need to follow. And then comes the last part where you have to think of what to focus on, what to leave, and whether the static should be focused more and the current should be focused more and all that. So that's like where you are disengaging from the previous integrated approach, as you rightly pointed out, to an approach which is too much prelims oriented. And that's where the PYQs give us a hint of what is the proportion of the current as well as the static. So based on that, one has to proceed. This is broadly what we need.
Exactly, sir. That was very beautifully summarized by you. So, Amil Sir, as we know that, like Sir has also highlighted that one thing is revision, another thing is practice, and now focusing more towards a kind of practice where we will incorporate specifically from the prelims perspective. And when we talk about, sir, prelims, there are certain kind of like MCQ practice, or we can say the mock test, that play a very important role. So what do you think, like how crucial attempting mock test at this particular juncture is?
See, I always have this feeling, I say this from the onset, that regarding mock test, even if we study the entire literature available for humankind on earth, if you will not practice papers, it is very tough because one has to understand the whole psyche of exam that we get exposed to during the mock test. And undoubtedly we are having 2 mock tests in the month of April and one is in May that we call Abhyaas.
Right.
Abhyaas undoubtedly is a monumental exercise that I would call a UPSC light. Okay, to UPSC light, it gives you an exposure to in that what you call simulated environment, and the same pattern that we have 9:30 to 11:30 AM, that is for GS paper 1, and paper 2 we have from 2:30 to 4:30 PM. So I would very strongly recommend Abhyaas being I think this is a gift. This is a gift to students because no other exercise gives them an opportunity, one, to enjoy to before exam to get exposed to the real time environment. Second, we have over the years we have witnessed this pattern that most of the students who are scoring good rank in Abhyaas, it gets replicated in the prelims also, the same kind of marks. So that gives you a confidence and gives you an understanding of the exam. And third thing, very, very important, gives you an opportunity to analyze that which all areas you are not scoring good at. So I think Abhyas would be doing justice to this.
Exactly. So also, sir, I would like to add one thing over here, that roughly we have a data that more than 30,000 aspirants are roughly appearing on every year basis. And if a student is testing himself or herself at this particular data, and as compared to the students who are actually serious about the examination, I think this is one of the largest data set that for the UPSC prelims one is having. I think that
Yeah. Of course, I feel that this is a blessing. This was not available 10, 12 years back. Now the students get to know where they are standing, I think, and that too being conducted at such wide scale, almost covering from Ladakh to Rameshwaram, from Itanagar to Gandhinagar. Almost we are covering. Okay.
So, sir, that was very well said. Now, Ayushi ma'am, as sir was talking about Abhyas, now the similar question is like, because one, even if Abhyas or any other mock test, one, if appearing for any kind of test, one thing comes in our mind that what should be the strategy that we take for the examination hall. So if I'm a student, because a lot of student comes during and after the classes, like, sir, how to approach these particular kind of tests, because sometimes they are confused about the number, sometimes they are confused about like what strategy, how they should go from 1 to 100 or 100 to first question. So what will be the strategy for that? Yeah.
Yes, yes, this is a common question, I guess, that students have in mind as to how to go about appearing for the paper. So what you do in the mock is what you are going to basically replicate at the level of the examination also, the main examination that you will be appearing for. See, I always say each to its own, because you cannot have a uniform strategy across all students. But generally speaking, as you were saying, see, there are two ways to go about the question paper. Yes, so one way is that you go about the question paper at one go. Yes, so in one stretch you will be attempting the questions that you feel confident about, that you might not feel very confident, but you are ready at that point itself, you are ready to take a guess, you are spending some time on that question, and then so basically in one go you will go through the paper generally once, and through it you will be marking it in the your OMR sheets as well. And the other way is you go for repeated reiterations. So that in that strategy what you do is you go through the paper once, the most confident questions, the questions you are the most confident about, you'll attempt in the first go itself. So maybe you'll attempt 30, 40 questions, 45 questions, and then you are once again reiterating through the paper, you are reading through the paper, and then maybe the questions where you can eliminate two choices, there you want to take guess, or maybe you feel that yes, I had little doubt, but subconsciously that doubt is clear, you feel confident that this is the answer, you will go about attempting that. So in a series of 3 or 4 readings, you go through the entire paper and mark it on the OMR sheet. So that is one part of the strategy, generally what we discuss in the class also for the students. The other thing is that at times what happens, as you open the question paper, you find a set of few questions which you are not in a position to confidently answer, and then you tend to lose confidence. Yes, so that is all but natural. You are sitting in a high stake examination, and if you feel you are not in a position to maybe answer 5 questions in a row, it dips or dims your confidence. So maybe in that context you can go from 100 to 0. Maybe you can flap through the question paper in the middle where you find that this is a subject with which I am comfortable and questions are listed here. You can start picking up those. So that helps to stabilize your nerves, and in a more confident and a calm manner you are able to deal with the paper. So my utmost suggestion for the students is, maybe through these mocks or prior to the mocks, we also have various test series for prelims. So you can practice which strategy suits you best, 1 reiteration or maybe 3, 4 reiteration. apart from the strategy, what is vital, as I always say, is that peacefully attempt the paper. Be calm. If the paper is difficult, it is difficult for all. If it is easy, do not become too jubilant. It is going to be relatively easy for all. So you maintain your nerves, and accordingly, sincerely, what you have studied will come to your mind. If when you are sitting in the examination hall, things do open up in your mind. Just be calm, maybe take a sip of water, and then go about attempting the paper.
Right. So I think what you are trying to tell you to the student here is like, do not bind yourself by a specific set of question or by a specific section only. And generally I have seen this particular kind of question, like suppose a student might be having geography optional and first few questions are from geography and the student is not able to solve those questions, then he will take on key like how I'm not able to solve this question. I'm having expertise in this particular set. So then the student try to take it on its ego. So that should never be the strategy. So Harsh sir, taking forward this discussion about attempting the paper, some people are also confused about like how many number of questions, like suppose karo if there are 100 questions, so the students are like this much number of questions should be there. You might also be seeing certain videos ki like 75 to karna hi hai. So what should be the strategy?
See, on this, I would take forward from what ma'am has discussed based on your previous question as well, that every paper, when you try to analyze it through the years, you find that in any paper, there are three set of questions: the easy ones, the moderate ones, and the difficult ones. And the exam is always cleared by ensuring that your easy questions are almost right, your moderate questions are decently right, and if you are trying your difficult questions, there is some strategy behind it which you are applying. If you apply it right, that's where you are able to crack the exam. If your strategy there goes wrong, or if it goes wrong in your first two steps, which is like, ma'am said that you must be calm. Now, and UPSC has this, some strategy they have figured out where they will put an answer in such a format that the questions start looking easy to you. And you start thinking, oh, such an easy question. And you take it without taking it seriously. And once you come out, you say, right? And I believe that if you make that sound 6-7 times while checking your answers, it becomes next year. Right. So I think you have to be calm. I generally say that if you find a question to be too easy, close your eyes, tell yourself, this is prelims exam. And reread the question. Yes. I'm sure you will see something which you might have missed last time. So I think this is one thing that must be kept in mind. And based on how the paper turns out, your answers and the number of attempt would be there. Now, that doesn't mean that you should be attempting something like 60 questions until unless it's like the exceptionally difficult paper that you have seen in your life. But I would not even say that you should try to always attempt something like 95, right? The number lies for you somewhere in between, and it depends pretty much on your accuracy. How accurate are you able to make your answers? How accurate are your easy answers? How accurate are your moderate answers? And in your difficult answers, I would say there are two things. One is your intuition, right? And the second is your probability ratio. Intuition is where you intuitively think that this is my answer. People say, मुझे पहला बार में ऐसा लगा था. Now, that intuition it's not an intuition to me. It's more of your background knowledge, right? So your intuition is your background knowledge. If your background knowledge is not rightly updated, your intuition is counterintuitive, right? So I think you must look into the question, figure out, is it a conceptual question where I'm applying my intuition, or is it a factual question? If it's a factual question, have I really done this fact? If I have not done it, that's a dicey question too. Conceptually, you might not make a mistake. Your intuitions might take you in the right direction. But in facts, there is nothing like intuition, right? It's either you know it in the background or you don't know it. So those are the questions where you have to decide, no, I'm not going to take the shot. It's like the bouncer which you miss deliberately, though you tempt like hitting a 6. So I think that is one thing I would say. And based on this, I would not give a number. If you ask me honestly, I'm not in a position to give you a number that no, you must be striking something like 80 to 90 or 90 to 100 or something like this. If you ask me, the number is decently okay. If you're closing somewhere around 85, 80, something in that range, provided your accuracy is decently good and you are not marking wrong answers.
And also about the accuracy and also the difficulty level. Because it is
Difficult.
at the end of the
Obviously.
day, it is a relative
Yes,
examination.
yes,
How the
yes.
others are performing.
So that's where the
we decide.
moderate and the simple and the difficult. If the
Exactly.
paper has many difficult questions,
Exactly.
you should take caution. And in such paper, accuracy is more important. Where the paper is difficult, accuracy is more important. You might attempt lesser question, but accurate. Because those difficult questions, people tend to take a chance, and that's where they lose it. Yeah.
So, sir, now taking forward the discussion, as Ayushi Ma'am and Harsh Sir have already talked about the attempting the mock test in order to go better with the actual examination. So, sir, generally one issue that I am able to understand from the side of students that they are not taking upon like what they have committed mistake in the actual mock tests. So for example, if they might have committed mistake with respect to any specific conceptual topic, so there are very high chances that similar thing might be repeated again in the actual examination. So one thing that comes to my mind is they are not doing exactly what value addition should be done, because from the classes or the topic preparation, they are not doing the value addition when it comes as a part of like the solution paper that they are getting. So Amil sir, if you may highlight certain things that how students should do the value addition with regarding the mock test there up.
I think that as my esteemed colleagues have already mentioned, most of the things very, very beautifully summed. And in fact, they are going to help. I would say ki there are few subjects, like being honest, this has to be, I cannot be very thing, but there are few subjects where I felt that they have not been, they don't take much interest. Okay. So like technology part, many students are not very interested in map practice, physical geography, ancient area. Okay. Other than polity and modern history, everyone likes. So first thing, if as you very rightly said that they have been consistently making mistakes, they must venture into those areas again, that why I'm making mistakes in physical geography. So because there is no point practicing mock if you cannot learn from the same. So first you should those areas where you have been, for example, out of 100 questions, if you are making 12 which are out of 15 from science incorrect every time, so one must go through the technology part. From map area, if you are making mistake, one must go through. That is something which would be a learning exercise, first thing. Second important thing, that they must go through our, we'll be coming up with a presentation and detailed description, because there would be some questions based on concept which cannot be answered merely on facts. One has to, there's a difference between information and knowledge. So they can go through our this what you call our discussion things also. And one more thing I would like to add, as ma'am very rightly said, this is a wonderful thing, because UPSC, see, UPSC last year cutoff was 76. This year it has not come, it is expected to be around 95. So UPSC sir very rightly said has a beautiful habit of being very unpredictable. So I think that keeping in mind that I will attempt this many questions, that is something which may not be so So I think that going through the mistakes that one has committed, watching our videos over the same, and also analyzing your rank, this we will give the ranks also, that you will give a brief idea about where do you stand. I think these things are going to help. Yeah. One more thing that related to current affairs. So in many, there are subjects which are more current affairs oriented. There are subjects which are relatively less oriented. So that this exam is about common sense. The more common sense you have, the more likelihood of like, so that common sense can be developed by practice and by analyzing things. One should sit with oneself. After the test, one should sit with oneself and analyze, rather than competing with your peers. Somebody who may, we have seen students in the class sit in the corner, scold less, but sometimes they have surprised us. So that is something.
Right, sir. And also, if I ask a follow-up question, the notes need to be prepared from the discussion or the post-test analysis.
I don't think, honestly, notes, because they are already flooded with notes.
As in like
description,
doing something value addition.
Value addition, you very rightly said. For example, if they are, for example, they may ask Article 200, the role of governor, which is a factual thing. But there is a judgment on Article 200. Exactly. So that is a value added. Right. I can give so many topics like which will be like this year. Delimitation is going to be important. Last year also I said this year languages most. I'm not framing the paper, but most likely there will be a question either on classical languages or Article 343 to 351. So this is something which is going to happen. Finance Commission, fiscal federalism. So value added, something Article 280 everyone knows. There are 4 functions named, but what is the addition? Then we have issues arising out of what you call this thing, which is what you call this spamming, and people are put under digital arrest. So what actually is arrest? Because UPSC has already asked judicial custody and police custody. So what is an arrest? Basic idea of an arrest, because digital arrest. So that is something which, in fact, let me honestly confess this before you. If they prepare 12 to 15 topics, I don't know much about other polity, I can say 15 to 20 topics, undoubtedly there will be 3-4 questions from those topics. So that value added will help, I think.
Right, and I think they can take certain kind of cue that already things are going on. Every day we see delimitation, every day we talk about the finance commission, the language related issues, every day it is going on. And recently the classical language status to Marathi, that also highlights the importance of class.
From the mocks also, as you pointed, mocks to me are not only a test. Honestly, if you ask me, they are not tests. They are more of a content to you, where you are just cross-checking whatever you know. Do you know everything, or are you missing something? Whatever you are missing is there in the mock. Mock is to make you realize this is what you are missing and this is what you know. So I think that has to be highlighted. If you don't do that, then there is no purpose that mock is solving, because nothing will match that D-Day feeling. You know, it's like no matter how many false bullets you get, the real bullet always hurts the most, right? So the exam would be something very different, but you must do this and you must learn from the test. If you are not doing, then it is not solving the purpose. And that's where those notes that you said, I guess that's what you meant, that those additional things must be taken. Yes.
Yes, I completely agree. I too believe this one is a common mistake, I think so, sirs, that students make, is that they look at mock only in terms of getting the score. They just want to get the score and see their ranking as far as Abhyaas is concerned. Otherwise, whenever they have been writing tests, they just talk about, okay, I am consistently stuck in maybe the 60s or 70s. I'm not able to cross this much marks. But that is not really the purpose of the mocks. The purpose of mocks is to learn from them, to identify the patterns where you go wrong, the subjects where you go wrong, the topics where you go wrong. See how good are you in terms of predicting when you are caught in a dilemma between maybe 2 options. Are you able to, when you choose one, and from the topic of cyclone, are you able, or ocean currents, are you able to get those correct? Or maybe from a topic of jet streams, you are able to get it wrong. So you have to identify those patterns and work towards them. Identify your strength and identify your weakness so that you can work on them. So that is the purpose of mock. It is not simply to get a probable score.
And one more thing I would like to add, that ma'am said a very good thing, that one should not celebrate early. Exactly. There are different kinds of students, sir, we meet. Some who are very good prepared, some who are relatively less prepared. This, unless you make an exit from the entrance, you know that you have made, because this is I usually joke in the class that the score is 117 at 11:30 am, which becomes 17 by 6:30 pm. This is the beauty of UPSC. Right. So whatever, even if you know all the 100 questions, hold your horses. This is patience. And unless you have, because it is actually wrong to celebrate early. Exactly. So this, I would say, patience is the.
And I would like to add here one thing, that another test with regarding which we will discuss now, which is CSAT. So as sir was talking about, like, do not celebrate early, because from 2:30 onwards you will have another paper which might bring you down also, which might uplift your score, because relatively if the other are going to not perform well in that particular paper, obviously it is going to increase your chances if you might have performed decently in the GS1 paper. So Ayushi Ma'am, if you can highlight briefly about like what should be one's strategy with respect to CSAT, if we can talk about, and specifically with respect to the mock test these days.
See, first, as far as CSAT is concerned, I think so previously students used to take it lightly, because it is just, you have to just clear the cutoff. It would not be counted in the main score, your total score. So one thing is, be very cautious about CSAT and prepare for it. And past 2 years, the kind of papers that UPSC has come about, I think so students are on their toes as far as CSAT is concerned. So that is one thing that they should first and foremost focus. And after the adequate preparation, which is an ongoing process which goes on till the very last day, yes, so In the meantime, when you are preparing for your mocks, you need to identify your areas of strength. As I was telling before, that the purpose of mock is not just to get a final score. You have to identify, are you good at reading comprehensions? Are you maybe not as good in logic and reasoning? Yes, maybe the core mathematical part of percentage and probability, are you able to get those questions correct or not? Yes, and accordingly strategize your preparation, because you cannot also, you cannot ignore an area completely and go, because you never know how the UPSC is going to play with the questions. Maybe an area which you thought you were good at, but they've asked such difficult questions that you have no choice but to go to basic maths, as had happened, I think so last or last to last year it had happened. Fine, so you have to be decently prepared across the various subsections of CSAT, and accordingly go about the exam.
Exactly. And here also, I think Abhyaas can play a very important role, because at the end of the day, for GS, you are getting 300 most probable questions that UPSC can ask. Roughly from even the current affairs perspective, they are very much likely question that might be asked. And even for CSAT also 80 into 40 question at the end of the day you are getting. So decent practice, identifying the areas where they are lacking and working upon that might be the helpful strategy for the students.
I would just add that more than 300 questions, it is about the area identification. Right. In those areas, you need to go into detail that this is a probable area from which we are expecting a question.
And actually, that way it turns out to be not 300 but 1200, because there are 4 options to each answer. So you are identifying 1200 options from which you can, make out.
Exactly.
Yeah.
So I think this is an open question from all of you, because all of you have dealt with a lot of students coming to us at this particular juncture talking about that they are facing difficulty with respect to managing the stress, because when you it is a kind of like cycle. When you appear for the test or do not appear for the test, everything is going to pile up certain amount of stress on you. When you are performing good, maybe a kind of stress that might be there on you that might not be realized at that point of time, but eventually in the examination that will create certain kind of stress. So if a student comes and like ask about like what kind of strategies that can be there in order to prevent this stress or the stress management related strategies, so what will be there, starting from you, Amil Sir?
This is such a beautiful question, like stress management. I feel the whole exam is about UPSC is desperately looking for people who are calm. And stress management, because honestly speaking, the exam is about there are many people who are very rich, opulent in information, facts, but they do not go through. So I think one thing is that comparing I think the family members should also play a key role. Okay, that one must realize that even if a person has not performed, there are chances like one has to take. So first thing is stop comparing with anyone. Be very, very realistic. Okay, and one more thing, do not think much about result, but about the process. This is actually very easy to say, but one of the best things that you can do not think much about the result. Just think that I am giving my best, and stress and any other activity like you can enjoy in the evening. And one more thing, there's a common problem among the students that they don't get sleep before prelims. Right. They don't get. So I very strongly recommend that you make it a habit from mid-April or before only, because there are students I see who study overnight and they sleep in the morning. So you make it a habit so that on that day, if you sleep well, this I said last year, I'm saying again, if you sleep well, you will score 4-5 more questions compared to other. So you should sleep well. Sir, please.
Hi, sir.
Yeah. So, see, on this, I would say UPSC is actually trying to test your character through every stage of the exam. And I believe the strongest character which is required to survive in any situation is what Darwin said, adaptability. Yeah, right. You must learn how to adapt to the paper then and there. Right. If you are not able to adapt to the paper, if you put your ego, if you think that, oh, this is my strong area, oh, how I could not do this. Once you get stuck with anything, that's where you're gone. And in the process of adaptability, you never think of result. You just adapt. Results follow from that. You survive. That is the outcome. So I think the exam is all about surviving. So you must just adapt to the paper then and there. Be in that moment. Do what is required. That's it. Don't think about whether I will be an extinct species or I will survive through. I think that's what I would say.
Are you sure?
See, as far as stress management is concerned, I always tell my students, and I too said this last year, that stress is good. Stress is not a bad thing. Uh, and anyways, you are going to appear for an examination for which you have been preparing for more than a year and a half minimum. Yes. So of course, you are going to feel a bit amount of stress, a little amount of stress, which is good. In fact, which keeps us on our toes, which will motivate us to do better, to study hard, to understand things better, and go for a smart strategy, appear for mocks, because everything takes an effort, and that effort maybe requires us to have that motivating push, which can be that stress factor. But only when stress becomes a distress, that it paralyzes us into inaction, that it becomes a problem. So till the time you have stress, it is good because it shows that you want to do well in life. You want to clear this exam. You are there to put efforts for the exam. So this is something which we should take positively. But of course, we should take steps so that the stress does not become distress. Yes, so the steps that you can take is, as I said, focus. Day, let each day be the day of focus. Do not think in terms of the results and the final outcome. Yes, you have a realistic strategy of preparation, a realistic timetable, slightly ambitious, which keeps us on our toes, but then it should be realistic. Yes, do as is required, maybe appear for mocks. If you cannot appear for 10 mocks, appear for 3 or 4 mocks as you feel comfortable while doing so. And beyond all this, what I generally suggest, if you can do one physical activity, I know it is it is easier said than done when just before the exams, but still then, if you feel that the stress is mounting up, you are getting into a situation of distress, then maybe a little physical, maybe just stretch yourself, maybe just do some breathing exercise, maybe just talk to one friend or one family member who brings a smile to your face, and with that go about the preparation. Just sit there and study. That is what your job is. Just sit and study and you will see the end of the tunnel.
I think that was very beautifully summarized. So, any final comments, Amil Sir, about Abhyaas?
Abhyaas, I would say that go appear, and this is a blessing. I would say it is a blessing because this is now available. Test yourself, and you will be in a better position to understand realistically because you are the one going to face the exam. I think appear for it. I would strongly recommend.
I would say that over the years of my association with Vision, 15 plus years, one of the strength of Vision has been the test series. So I would say that this is a process which we have refined over the years, and I wouldn't say we are the best, but the papers that we make are amongst the most realistic when it comes to the exam. So this is a good way of testing yourself. If you think there is any other thing you want to take up, take it up. But I believe this is one of the papers which really brings you very close to the real feel.
Yes, as beautifully summarized by both sirs, I too believe that this, in fact, is a gift. It is a gift which has been given by Vision IS to the student community, because a real-time experience as far as preliminary examination, as far as your GS and CSAT, is otherwise unthinkable. So once you are getting that experience, you should materialize it and try and utilize it to the best of capabilities.
So I think this was a fruitful discussion in order to discuss about the mock test, utility of the mock test, and specifically about Abhyaas, which is now about to start from 6th April onwards. And that is, I think, a best exam habituation that we say, because the kind of stress that gets mounted on the students' end, till the point of time they are not testing themselves in the actual exam like scenarios, that 3 hours fatigue between the 11:30 to 2:30 between that particular point in time, and that too in the summer season. So that takes a toll, and after that reappearing for another paper. So I think that habituation is very, very important for the examination. So thank you everyone for joining us and providing the insightful suggestions for the student. Thank you. So we have tried to cover each and every aspect regarding the mock test and the prelims related strategy. For more such insightful discussions regarding the prelims and the other strategies, stay tuned. Thank you.